Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach.
I'm Holly Deschenes. I am Brandon's co-host and producer for this podcast.
So today we're getting into this idea of permission to be happy now. It's to be a driven individual or somebody who wants to make changes in your life. You kind of get split between these two worlds of I want life to be different and that recognition. There's kind of this idea of I won't be happy until that happens. It's just kind of the natural inclinations of the mind is we're always kind of off somewhere else. And so it really is just important to enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride, not only for our own well-being, but it also that helps kind of smooth out the road and lowers that resistance that we're always talking about. The more I can be in this energy of gratitude and grateful for the life I have, that starts to attract different situations that will kind of further that energy for me. So, we are in control of our thoughts and our emotions if we work on them. A lot of times these things happen by default. We have these automatic programs that run. We're always like seeking to protect ourselves in different ways, and that creates the negative emotions. As we kind of catch this rhythm, it is really important to stay present, connected, and enjoying life to the best of your ability, no matter what the circumstances are. We do that with mindset adjustments. We do that with anchoring to principles and ideas that make us feel like we're also on the right track. So we're going to be going through the mechanics of this today and kind of shining a light on some pitfalls and some things to ease the path a little bit. It's really about being able to really soak up every moment for what it has to offer, and there's gifts every step of the way, and there's things to enjoy every step of the way, and we want to start to orient our mind that way. Before we get into that, do you have a question for me today?
Sure. I do have a question for this week. And just as a reminder, anybody could submit a question for Brandon. You can do so by accessing our or by sending an email or a DM or a text message, or any of those things would be ways to get a question to us to have on the podcast. But for today, what I have is, do you see value in a Memento Mori exercise?
Yes, I do. It's so for you that don't know, so memento mori is kind of keeping into perspective this inevitability of death. So you will die someday. I don't know what the exact translation is, but it's that is one of the anchors that we're kind of talking about here. I need to have this broader perspective. Memento mori can be very helpful in terms of keeping yourself in check of living in alignment with the life that you want, and also it can kind of help develop some courage too, that hey, what's the worst that could happen if I keep pushing this off? I might never get to it. It's important to always like get into that frame of, is there some steps I can take? Is there some of these things that I've been building up too much and have too much anxiety around where it's preventing for us from taking those steps? We can easily get caught in the delay mindset as well of someday. And that's a big thing we're talking about today is you just never know. You never know what could happen. It's important to enjoy each day. I was in New York over the weekend, and I had a great conversation with a gentleman at a hotel bar about this. It was it was that he said every day you wake up is a blessing, and his mom like ingrained that into him. Is he said every day, so he was about to turn 70, and he said every day is your birthday, which I thought was a cool mindset. Is if you get to open your eyes each day, that's a gift. How do you want to use the day? How do you want to, we want to be in this mode of appreciation and gratitude for the things that we're given. And of course things can always be better, or we could want differently. It's finding the gifts in each day, and it's really kind of putting us in that gratitude mindset. It gets a little overused, I think, in like kind of the law of attraction like realm of just saying you should be grateful for everything. It's like you want to honor what you feel. If you don't feel great about something, we want to work it to the place where you see the value in it or the blessing that's hiding behind it. But sometimes that takes some work to get there. But I think it's really good to have this broader perspective. And me personally, I've been in a relationship for 3 years. We're talking about marriage and kids and all those things. And This is a big travel year for me, so I've already taken probably 15 trips or something. And so it's that perspective of once I take those steps, like things are going to look different, right? It's kind of understanding that it is going to be a different life. It's using that to take every opportunity I get right now to do the things I want to do. That's also a blend of this idea of like you kind of got to know where your life's heading and really appreciate each moment for what it has to offer you. And even, with the travel, it's exhausting right now. And there's times where I'm just like, am I doing too much? And like all that stuff. It's also like, no, this is the time for that. I have the resources to do that at the moment. And so it's all part of that perspective. Also, I set a goal a couple of years ago of, I want to go to Europe every summer. And so I've gone the last 3 summers and that's also kind of mixed in of like, okay, as soon as I can do these things, I'm going to do these things because life can shift and change at any moment. There might be things that come up that prevent you from doing it. It's allowing that space to really honor, what's true for you and what you really want out of life. There can be too much action. There can be, okay, I'm just forcing things, but it's getting to that centered place and aligning with things. If you have the alignment going on, there's a flow to things. They kind of naturally happen. So I don't want to be bringing desperate energy into things. I don't want to be forcing things that aren't there. So it is a bit of a balance. I think it's just kind of understanding that there are things you can do now that maybe you've been putting off. And a big one for many people, I think it's getting less common, but traditionally it was, you work your whole career, and you're working towards retirement. So you just work really hard for those 40 years or whatever. And then you get to travel or do whatever you want afterwards. So I think a lot of people that do that, they, their body isn't where they want to be. There might be health complications going on. There might be things that actually make it very difficult to live that way when they've set it up that way. So I'm more of a have the perspective every step of the way. You don't have to delay everything you want in your life. There is a balance to it. But we want to bring wisdom in there of like, yes, there are certain things like you should probably do while you're younger. It was also part of my baseball journey too, of like I started to catch some momentum. I started to get really good, and I was kind of faced with that decision to pursue like a typical normal job, after college or try and make that happen. That's also that perspective of like, this is my chance to do this, and so I have to take it, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be very uncomfortable, but this is what might be needed at this time. So I think it's very ingrained in my philosophy is to have that mindset and that broader perspective with things. I do see a value in it, and I think, anytime you're taking life too seriously or getting bent out of shape about every little thing, that is that call to zoom out. And this idea that I'm going to die someday, helps me kind of minimize whatever problems I'm currently experiencing too. Like I think it helps kind of smooth that stuff off of like, in the grand scheme of things, like whatever I'm going through isn't that bad, or I know I'll get through it. That's what we're always trying to accomplish in this podcast and in my work, is to have this broader perspective and bring these things into view so you can really take advantage of the opportunities in front of you.
I think that is a perfect lead in to the permission to be happy now. There were a couple things when you said this topic that I thought of too, and my favorite band, who we've talked about, it's been like many episodes ago now, but they recently released a song called Maybe the Best Is Now. And their perspective on this, right, is like rather than the best is yet to come, which could also be true, but it's that same idea. So I immediately thought of that song when you said this topic.
It's all mindset stuff. I think people, you might think like high school or college is like the best time of your life or whatever, but it's like this, everything's an evolution. I think the deeper you understand yourself and the more you live in alignment with that, it's every day can pretty much be a good day because you're working the kinks out. You're not stuck in the past. I think that's what really creates a lot of problems is people get stuck, hung up emotionally, stuck in the past, and then they start projecting that into their future, whether they're always off in the past or off into the future, and it's through this negative lens of unresolved issues. So I don't like see things getting better at times, or if I am conscious of what I'm working on and I have goals attached to that and I'm trying to improve that, it's still we want to enjoy the process. We don't want it to be, okay, I just need to be miserable for the next like 2 years until something happens. Because, nothing's guaranteed either. So it's kind of like, I might as well enjoy it. I might as well like find a way to look at these things where, everything is this growth experience, everything is this expansion. And in that mindset, we're able to, you kind of detach from like needing the thing to happen to begin with. The more I'm just like at peace with myself, the less like I need something that I think is going to fix that problem, because every day I'm just in that process. I think it's okay to want things, and you should want things, but it's also one, the things you want, are they like true for your heart? That's a big question. A lot of times we think we want things, but it's just to relieve some sort of pain or stress or wound in our life. And we think that that's going to solve our problem. That might be a relationship, that might be more money, that might be, some sort of career shift or whatever. It's also, well, how am I properly utilizing what's right in front of me? Because the things I don't like about those situations, they're pointing to something deeper in me that needs to be resolved anyway. So if I look at a situation, I'm not happy with it, that's actually an internal process. That's where the work actually is. How can I see this through a lens where it's not pulling me into disappointment, letdown, shame, guilt, anger, sadness, whatever it is? If I'm seeing it through that lens, that's colored by my past. That's the interesting thing about, we think a positive mindset is always being forward looking, but I think it's more of being able to turn back on our life and reconcile things, to make peace with them, because that's what our system's responding to. It's not it thinks I need these things, but because only a wound is activated. So the wound is in my past. And so the more I make peace with that stuff, the more I'm like kind of good no matter what. And then I bring a different energy into my goals. I bring a different energy into like, yeah, this would be cool if it happens, but I'm also okay if it doesn't happen. I don't need it to happen. And so when we need something to happen, that's built on the wound from the past. And so it's really about getting our mind straight first, and kind of seeing what the process really is. I've walked through it 100 times on this podcast, but it really is like, okay, so whatever desire I have, I'm going to be moving towards that. And as I take steps towards that, I'm going to be shown what I believe about the situation. That's what my challenges are going to be. My challenges, it's I have a belief system that's in conflict with what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I'm going to be shown that through my experiences. Those things are going to come up every step of the way, regardless. So, how do we see those challenges? Do we see them as, this is the reason I shouldn't do it, or I'm wrong for wanting this, or do we see it as like, oh, this is a pretty natural process, and I'm just sorting myself out? It's showing me the things that I'm in conflict with, which are going to be limiting beliefs from my past. So that's going to be wounds, things I need to protect myself from, old coping mechanisms, things I was taught by my caregivers or society that are limiting me. And so I'm going to be confronted with that every step of the way. And so that is going to be indicated by a negative emotion. So every step I take, there are going to be things that come up that don't feel very good. And that's what the work is. When I address those and I make peace with those, I expand and I feel better. And I gain wisdom and knowledge that I need to move forward with. If we catch that rhythm, you understand that there's going to be things that come up that don't feel good, but that's not to prevent you from being happy, right? We can be like, oh, I understand this rhythm. I'm going through it. This happened. So now I'm given my next piece to work on. That's where my work is. I have to sort that out within myself. I have to upgrade my beliefs. I have to upgrade how I see myself. And when I do that, I restore back to balance and I feel good again. That's what gives me my next steps. But it's also, so the second part of it is that recognition of how far you've come. As I take steps forward, there's, if I'm not there yet, there's still this idea of like, when's it ever going to happen, or will it happen? Those types of things, where we're kind of in tune with all the times we failed or been let down in life. That's plugging us back into those things which we have to work out. But we can have gratitude for how far we've come. So I used to really struggle with this thing, and now I'm doing much better, right? And so it's just like that gives us this ability to sustain the path that I can look back and I can see how much I've grown. So like if I've grown this much, like why wouldn't I continue to grow? If I just keep following this path, it's going to lead to better and better things. That's what the faith and trust is. It's this like, oh, I'm kind of seeing how these things are developing. My mind always wants them to happen right now, but it's just looking for relief from the wound. Okay, we just keep addressing the wound until it's not a wound anymore. Every time I have the negative emotion come up, it's just reminding me of those things. And so when I work those out, I restore back to being able to operate more out of this place of joy and playfulness. The cool thing is like once you like do this so often, your expectations are going to be positively oriented. You're going to kind of see the beauty in things. You're going to see that, hey, like I've conquered all these other things. Like what makes this any different? They're just things on my path that are showing me about myself that I need to grow from if I want to get to the goal that I want. I've talked a lot about being goalless and those ideas of just I view life as an adventure. So it's just kind of in an adventure, you don't just want all the easy stuff. You want the roadblocks, you want the obstacles, you want the unexpected things to pop in because that's what makes it fun and exciting. We could view it life as this video game of I'm always leveling up and the challenges might get harder and harder, but I'm rising to meet those as well. And if we view that career wise, that means like the more difficult problems I can solve, the more valuable I am. If I'm growing to be able to solve like very high level problems, when I'm at that level, those difficult problems are actually pretty easy to me. When I first started, those I wouldn't know how to solve them, but I've grown to the place where it's not a big deal. So all these things, it's just kind of this continual growth and progress where it's just whatever's like meant for you is going to show up for you because it's teaching you about yourself. The happiness piece is seeing each one of those obstacles is a gift and that it's actually not a bad thing, but then it's also appreciating how far I've come and the things that have popped into my life that I had no idea would happen or that were unexpected. It's having that broader perspective of all of it that, hey, I'm growing, so that feels good. I've come a long way, so that feels good. I've conquered a lot, so that gives me confidence to conquer the next thing. I don't view it as like this impossible situation because I've solved a lot of other situations. It's kind of all those things that combine to being able to be happy and enjoy every moment of the way because I'm being pushed and pulled in some of these directions and I don't know where it's going to lead. And that's exciting once you start to have this positive association to things. And our mind is naturally negative by default because it's trying to protect us. But the more I see the gifts and the blessings that come from the challenges, the more I'm actually like excited when challenging things come up. It's like, oh, this is going to take me to a new level. This is going to give me a new mindset. This is going to give me a whole new perspective on this thing that I'm trying to accomplish. Those are all things that make us feel good if we can see that bigger picture to it.
So you've touched on a few things that, like the sort of negativity bias that all humans have, and, maybe the wounds from the past or whatever. But if we're working on trying to be happy now and we're working on healing this, but we're finding ourselves like drugged back into this pattern of negativity or this pattern of it's almost like the anxiety of the other, like I can't be happy now because the other shoe is going to drop or something like that. Maybe talk a little bit about ways to find to like work yourself out of that kind of a pattern of actually enjoying the moment instead of being like, this is really cool, but I know it won't last. And so therefore you make a positive thing negative.
The other shoe to drop comes from, growing up in households where it was unstable, very volatile, where you didn't know what was going to happen next, and it usually meant bad things. It was an emotionally immature person that didn't have control of their emotions, and certain things could just set them off out of nowhere. That's generally what that is. It's that anxiety that okay, things are peaceful, but they're not going to be soon, and you don't really know why, right? And it's just because the dominant person's emotions. And also that another shoe to drop would be a lot of disappointment and letdown. So every time I tried for something, it didn't work out, or so I stopped trying, or I stopped believing, because I might have gave it my best shot for many, many years. I didn't have the support or the resources or the people around me or the perspective to help guide me through those things at that point in life. I couldn't figure it out for myself. That's also what can create that feeling, is the time you felt alone with all the struggles. That's the importance of outside perspective or good counsel, or people that have gone through a similar path as you, is they kind of know what you're going through. And if we feel all alone about things, it's very difficult to maintain that hope or the optimism that things are going to work out, because yeah, there might just be some pieces that I'm not aware of that are holding me back, and until that awareness gets created, it's not going to work out. So those are kind of the two ideas of what would create that type of feeling. But then we bring it back to its basic terms of like, so if I've already been let down like 100 times, if I've been through like the challenging childhood, the instability of that, odds are is usually the worst is behind me. And me trying for something and it not working out, or another shoe dropping, that's going to be it's just going to create negative emotions. That's like usually the worst. I mean, there might be some details to sort out, but it's going to feel bad. But like I've already felt all those ways, and I've already like gotten through that stuff. But it's just going to remind me of me feeling that way from the past again. Okay, that's usually the worst thing that's happening, is every time something good starts to happen, somebody would sabotage it, or there would be this chaos that would throw me through a loop, right? So when I go to experience that moving forward, that's all that is. It's the reminders that I can't trust this and I'm not safe and like all that stuff. And so that's the deeper work. That's the pieces that's actually like giving us information that like I'm expecting something bad to happen because it always has. Okay. But when we go back and we address those things and heal those things, that's what starts to calm that anxiety. But also, I shift my mindset to being process oriented. So it's not just me fixated on the outcome, and the outcome's all that matters. It's me saying, hey, I'm on this journey, I'm taking these steps, and I know that there's going to be challenges. I know that when I'm feeling good, that's probably going to be followed by something that doesn't feel very good. That feels bad. And that's the natural order of things, is we have an expansion and then a contraction. Is every time I expand and grow, I'm going to be confronted with what I believe that's holding me back from my next level. As I expand and hit a new level, something's going to bring me back down, because my system won't allow me to expand just continuously. I need to learn every step of the way. And that's actually how I get to completion. That's how I get to completion, is I follow each step as it's given to me. And so every time I expand, I know that there's going to be a contraction that happens, and that's going to be in the form of a negative emotional reaction. And I'm going to have thoughts and beliefs about that. Okay. And that's the stuff I need to confront and work out and align with who I'm becoming. You stop expecting the other shoe to drop, and you start being like, oh, well, like, yeah, of course something's going to happen, but I'm on this path and it's going to be showing me the next piece. And the next piece is me reworking this next part of myself. It's actually seeing that as part of the process. And I just keep working that process until I get to where I want to go. There are things that are more time based, that it's just like, okay, I have this deadline and that kind of thing. But there's other things that it's just like more of an ongoing journey. That's what gives us that space to work these things out. Is I'm gonna I'm gonna take some shots. I'm gonna put myself out there in new ways. I'm gonna try and make things happen. But I'm always gonna be faced with reality, and reality is what I believe about that situation. If I'm shown that, let's say I started off, I'm at 20% belief that this is going to happen. So as I go on that path, I'm going to get to like 16, 70% that, like, yeah, this is like starting to look more certain, but there's going to be that 30% of doubt still in there. There's going to be 30% of conflict still in there that I'm going to be confronted with. When I'm actually ready for something, I'll be at 100%, or I'll be at 95. We can There's different ways to do it, but that's like kind of the natural flow of it. Also, like, if you're your desire is way stronger than any fear you have, like that can also override that. So if I set my mind and I'm like 1,000% clear on this is what I want, and I'm willing to move heaven and earth to make it happen. I'm in this place of problem solving. So whatever comes up, I don't let it stop me or slow me down. I just keep moving through it until I get there. If my desire is fueled by this very strong belief in myself, I can override a lot of those doubts too. That takes a lot more grit and determination. But there's kind of the two modes. There's like the accelerated path, and there's this is like the more manageable path of like I just go take steps, and then I'm given the feedback. I work those out, and then I go take more steps. It just kind of depends on which version you want. But regardless, it's like I don't think we should be attaching our worth and value to any sort of goal. I think it should be like I desire this because I want to experience it, not because I need this in order to be happy. There's a difference there. And so we want to take our worth and value out of any sort of achievement because it's dependent on all these circumstances that we don't have control over. This is a common one with athletes. It's like, you could have your best race and you could still not get on the podium. Is that a failure or is that a success, right? It's if the success is just being on the podium, that's pretty short-sighted, because what if it's the best race I've ever done, if I made massive progress in all these other areas, like how is that not a win? So it would serve me to feel good about the growth I've had. It would serve me to feel good about, hey, this is actually, I'm getting better and better at this. And it's only a matter of time before I get on the podium. We don't have control over competition, like who we're up against. If they're better than me, they're better than me. But if I keep working at it, I'll get better too, right? And so you kind of create these scenarios where what's going to sustain you is you feeling good about the work you're putting into something, and then trusting that it's going to lead to more and more over time. We do all this stuff with mindset shifts is I need to have this broader perspective. I need to detach from the outcome is all that matters. And I need to get more into what is my day-to-day progress. Like how much am I growing? What are my next steps to continue on this path? I'm going to have to conquer myself in the process. And that means the parts of me that are shut down and want to protect me from pain, which is going to steal my joy. If I kind of step out of that whole game and I'm just like, okay, I had a breakthrough and now I'm going to get something that's going to make me feel negative because that's showing me my next piece I need to work on. That can very easily be shifted into a positive where I'm like, oh, like I got my next piece. Like this is something to be excited about. This is something I've wrestled with. But because of the expansion, I have greater access to the lower parts of me that need to be resolved because the positive energy pulls that stuff to the surface. So as it gets pulled to the surface, that's actually exciting of like, okay, I have my next step now. And I've just kind of played these tricks with myself all the time where it's like when I get sick, I'm like, oh, like I'm leveling up. Like my body's getting rid of old stuff. Like, I just kind of see everything that way, that whatever I'm given, it's what I need, right? Like it wouldn't be happening if it wasn't meant to happen, right? So it's like it showed up. So how do I get to the place of acceptance with it as fast as possible? Like, okay, it's here. So this must be the next thing I need to deal with. It's actually an exciting process that, this might suck. It might be stressful, but I know I'm going to grow from it. I know that it's going to make me better. I know it's going to make me stronger. I know I'm going to gain some wisdom here. Those are the things that like pull you out of it pretty quick is you see it as this ongoing journey that you're being challenged every step of the way to bring more out of you. And the bring more out of you piece is really you shedding your past limiting beliefs. It's you letting go of the things that aren't actually you. Each time you do that, you feel lighter, more clear, more connected. All these things have these resounding positive effects, but it's not seeing everything that happens as a bad thing. It's seeing it as a necessary thing that, okay, this was brought to me for a reason. I'm going through this for a reason. And I'm just searching for like, what do I need to learn from it? Rather than like, oh, this is the reason that I can't do this, or, I need to stop here because of this. It's like, no, I need to grow through it, and I'll get better as a result.
As you were going through that, one of the things I was thinking about that it's happened to me personally, I've witnessed it happen with friends where that gets in the way of being happy now, and that is expectation. So either there's some sort of expectation for how something's going to go, and then it doesn't go that way, that expectation then takes away from whatever the accomplishment is. You're talking about it in the realm of athletes. If I expect to be on the podium and then I'm not there, it can be hard to get to the place of seeing all of the lessons or whatever. So maybe talk a little bit about expectations and how that impacts the ability to be happy now in these different situations.
We expect that reality is going to show us what we need. And it's inflated expectations or building up of a situation that is setting us up for letdown. So that's what creates waiting for the other shoe to drop is like, I'm like trying to convince myself that this thing's happening, but we'll kind of, if you're really in tune, like you'll notice you're kind of lying to yourself. We're trying to make things out to be more than they are. And that's why we smooth out the road with this process orientation of like, yeah, I'm just each step of the way, I'm given my next piece, and whatever I'm confronted with, that's my next challenge. It's still coming from that wound of like I need this to feel better about myself. I need this to validate me. And so no achievement's ever going to do that. That's the trick, because the world's filled with people that achieve a lot of things, but they're very empty inside. You'll hear most of them say, like, yeah, I thought this was going to be amazing, and I actually went into depression, or like I felt numb. It's like those ideas of, if we're just using one data point as whether we're happy or not, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment, letdown, and heartbreak. It's catching this rhythm of just being really present with ourselves, being present with the process. It's the surrender piece too, of like we surrender expectations, especially some of these high level athletes I work with. Sometimes an injury or an illness can pop up, or life challenges, family things, all these things can stack up against them, where it's just like, well, we're not operating under perfect circumstances here, so we probably need to adjust expectations. And it actually serves us a lot of times to have low expectations or no expectations, and to just show up and go do the thing and see what happens, give it our best shot, because the expectations just add extra pressure. When we feel extra pressure, now I'm plugging into that fight or flight response, and now I'm just going out of habit, which is me pulling from my past. And so I'm just going to recreate a different version of the thing I'm already struggling with. When we say with relationships, a big one of like, okay, a lot of people get into relationship or marriage because they're like, especially if you haven't had one in like a relationship in a while, you think like, oh, if I just had a partner, that would fix all these problems. Well, like you're still bringing all those problems to the relationship. Okay. It's, you're just going to keep experiencing those until you resolve them. Whatever I don't resolve, I might be holding the other person accountable for my emotions. I might be having expectations of them so that I don't have to feel what's going on inside me. It's always your own work. Like nobody can do that for you. Nobody can make you happy. It's an inside job, and it's how you see the world. It's how you frame up situations. That's what allows you to feel happiness or not. If I have these wounds that I'm carrying with me, and I'm inflating my expectations because I think the result is going to save me from those feelings, I am going to be let down every time because I'm not in tune with reality. If I work those things out, now I'm able to just be present with the situation. I'm able to just show up and do it. There might be, in a race or something like that, there might be things like, oh, I made a mistake here, I wish I would have done better. But that's things you learn from. It's not, oh, I failed, or we don't go into the like the pit with it. It's more of just like, yeah, like I'm a little disappointed that I reacted this way, or I wish I would have made this move instead of that move. You start to use that as data to grow from for the next time. But we stabilize emotions. Mature emotions are stable emotions, and so the more mature you are relative to the area that you're working in, you're not going to have these dramatic ups and downs. Okay, it's going to be, the highs and lows are actually going to be more stable. So I can be disappointed. It's not going to be I failed and I suck at this. It's going to be like, oh yeah, there's an opportunity for me to grow here. And so we get into more subtle shifts the further along you are with something. So I call a weakness is just an area where you're very emotionally immature. So that's just like my mindset around this subject matter is basically left in the place of a child or a high school kid. in that place, I'm going to have these dramatic emotional spikes in the fall off, because you just think of like a teenage relationship. The first time you fell in love and the first breakup you went through, like all that stuff's like so dramatic. That's emotional immaturity. It's just left in that place of, this is the greatest thing in the world, or this is the end of the world. But the further along you are with something, it's more of, you can just be present with it, and your expectations are in alignment with reality, because you're not projecting so much of your hopes and dreams on one thing. We stabilize the path by maturing emotions, and so that is by unpacking, resolving the issues of the past. So this is all context based. So, I might be very mature and strong in my career, but I not be might not be very good at relationships. I might still have a lot of wounds there. I might have had a lot of betrayals, or been disconnected from my parents, and so the idea of love is very confusing to me. And so that's going to create bigger emotions. If we're operating from those bigger emotions, we know that there's some growing up to do in that area, which is going to help stabilize the path, and it's going to make it actually more predictable. Is like, the more I'm in tune with reality, because a lot of time, like relationship, so a divorce doesn't like happen overnight, right? It's usually thousands of things that stack up that weren't addressed. And so it's, the maturity is, each problem like actually does matter, because we have to work through it and reconcile it and get back to center with it, because if not, it's going to keep stacking up. But the more disconnected you are and the more immature you are around that, it's going to be like, oh yeah, I don't know why we broke up. I don't know what happened. Like, I thought they were happy, because you're so disconnected from the other person, because you didn't work through the challenges every step of the way. So you can't even feel the other person. That's the idea. The more that gap grows, the more I might desperately cling to these expectations to try and rein it in. Reality is going to win out, in terms of, like, if you're disconnected and you're really far off, like, that is just going to be constant conflict. All we're trying to do is bridge the gap, so that it's not so big, because now we can relate to each other. There's not like this huge bridge to cross. It's just like this, oh, okay, we're a little bit far apart here. I can at least understand where they're coming from, and we can connect some dots there. If you're really far apart, there's a lack of understanding on both sides, and that lack of understanding just creates massive conflict. We lower expectations, and we do the internal work, and that kind of solves all problems. It's always just showing us what I've got going on inside me, and if there's unresolved things, those are going to keep coming up to the surface for me to work through them, whether I want to or not. And so if I want to blame other people for that, I can. But then if I'm doing that, I'll never get the answers I'm after. It's expectations, it's just projections of what you believe, or it's projections of your hopes and dreams based on a wound. The deeper the wound, the more I'm going to function from imagination around it. So if I feel miserable in an area, I'm going to think that, like, oh, this thing would like solve all my problems and fix everything. But there's really a massive gap there, because I haven't put the work in to stabilize that. And so I'm just hoping that this thing's going to save me. Okay. That's what you get with a lot of religion and things like that, is everybody's looking for a savior. But it's you saving yourself. It's you going into these things, healing these things, coming to peace with them. That's where we get back in tune with reality, and that's where we start to really function effectively, and we're feeling pretty good most of the time, because like when there's that gap going on, i I kind of know it's not going to happen, but I'm trying to convince myself it is, and that's where I'm like lying to myself.
So as you were going through all of that, one of the things that I kept sort of coming up in my brain was, all right, I think there's when you talked about like really high highs, really low lows, right? And the emotional immaturity. I think there are some people, and maybe it is their emotional immaturity, who define happiness, right, as that high high. And they're trying to figure out how to be on the high high more. But if I'm understanding you correctly, it's not that, right? It's going to be like maybe more middle of the road. So on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe we're more like 5, 6 on in happiness, as
Maybe
opposed to
7.
10, maybe 7.
Yeah.
But let's talk about like the sort of that definition of that kind of happiness, and like create sort of maybe a better picture of that might not be what people automatically think of.
I mean, I think we get a lot of bad information from like movies and stuff, and the romantic stuff of like this is what it's supposed to look like. But like relationships that are these massive spikes are actually like unhealthy relationships. It's, the roller coaster ride that's like an adrenaline rush. It's exciting, but so everything is equal and opposite. So if I have this really high high, I am going to have the really low low. When you're out and about and you see people that are over the top with things, acting like they're happy, like you actually know they're really sad inside because you can't have one without the other. They like go together. So whatever amplitude I'm feeling this, I'm going to be feeling the lower version of it too, and they like pull on each other. That's why we want stable emotions, and that's it. It's contentment. It's like feeling good. It's just being connected. It's being in joy, where I'm not expecting too much out of anything. I'm not expecting something to save me. I'm not expecting somebody else to make me happy. It is an inside job, and the more I stabilize my emotions and come to peace with myself, the more I'm naturally just going to generate that. When we start to stabilize things, it's like just like we're talking about earlier, when I see it as a process, when I see the challenges as like, oh, these are necessary, this is designed to grow me. When I experience those, yeah, I'm only dipping down to 3. I'm not dipping down to 0. I'm like 7 to 3. Yeah, this was great, this was exciting, and then it's just like back to 5. Okay, and then when the contraction comes, it's like, oh, it's a 3. Yeah, this is kind of annoying. This is irritating. I might have some anger, things like that, but it's like I know I'm not going to stay there, because when you mature emotions, you just kind of you get past the everything's like the end of the world. You get past like this problem's never going to be solved. You're just like, oh, okay, this is kind of annoying, but like I know I'll get through it because I've gotten through of all these other things, and they've actually like helped me grow a lot. Even if I'm going through the tough phase, it's not the end of the world. It's manageable. I might have periods where I temporarily dip down to 0. The more you do this work, that's a smaller and smaller fraction of the time. It's kind of stupid to feel this way because I know it's not true. Like I have enough evidence to know that my life isn't over, right? That there's a solution to whatever the problem is. You keep working things until it is more in that 7 to 3 range. And that's the maturing of emotions, is just you're bringing in this adult perspective of, yeah, I've gone through a lot of challenges, and I've come out the other side, and I know that every problem can be solved. But the problem, when we get the big spikes, our mindset and emotions is still stuck in the younger place. And so that's where that's coming from, is we're viewing things through that lens of consciousness. So when I have an unresolved issue, my emotions are wherever I left it last. Okay. So let's say I got cheated on when I was in high school and it was like the worst thing ever, and I went into depression. If I just like moved forward without like taking a look at that situation and my role in it, then my emotions are left in that place of like the 16-year-old that was like devastated. When I go to date again, that's going to be playing in the back of my mind, and my mind's actually going to be looking for those signs that that person's going to do the same thing to me. It's a reflection of like the work is the work. You need to take a look at that situation and unpack it and bring in the perspective of being a full grown adult now and all the experiences you have. And we start to measure that against that younger version of us, and we start to bring it along. And we do that with mindset shifts of like, how do I see the situation now? If I see it through, because when I go through the experience, I'm just taking a snapshot with my mind, and then I'm attaching these blanket judgments to it. It's like all or none thinking, good or bad thinking. I'm generalizing all these ideas, about the opposite sex, or, whether good people are good or bad or whatever it is. I'm like, my mindset is like stuck in this place that doesn't have any nuance, doesn't understand how life works at all. You know, it's stuck in the place of I'm just trying to figure it out, like every high schooler is. You're very insecure, self-conscious, like all that stuff, like you don't really know. But a lot of people carry that same stuff into adulthood. They're not updating it, and so you might see somebody that's in their late 30s still acting like a high schooler around the idea of dating. The longer it goes on, the weirder it gets, because it's just like, oh, you don't like get these things yet. but it's because they haven't unpacked those experiences. So their emotions are left in that place. And until we turn back and unpack it, work through them, and update our mind about what really happened in that situation, get it in tune with reality, they're going to be in this unstable place. So that's all we're trying to do is we're trying to bring these things up to speed with this furthermost expansion of who you are, which is like, way more about life now than you did when you were in high school or when you were a kid. The big emotions are always going to be parts of you that you've left in those places, and we haven't looked at them. We've tucked them away and left them in that place. When they get activated, they feel the same as that younger version of ourselves. So the maturing of emotions is going back to that younger version. The healing process is done through a perspective shift. So I need to see the situation differently in a way that feels better. And then that starts to heal the wound as I start to let go of the negative beliefs associated with that situation. So that's how we smooth out the road. And that applies to everything. It could be like I really struggled in school. And so now in my job, like I always feel like I'm doing something wrong, or I feel like it's not good enough. It's all these things that are remnants of that. We go back in and, because, there's the imposter syndrome stuff. People could be operating at a very high level, but they have these anxieties playing in the background of the time when they got an F in their class, or didn't know what they were doing, and they were lost and they didn't have the help to get through it, to learn the knowledge. So they're bringing that with them into their adult career. So that's what's creating the anxiety. But then it puts a ceiling on us. As long as I'm holding on to those ideas, I can't grow past them. And so we have to go back. We have to retrieve that part of ourselves. We have to get the perspective shifts to unlock it and let it go and process it. Then we integrate it back into who we are now. And then you'll immediately see a confidence shift. You'll see somebody more embodied. You'll see somebody more sure of what they're doing after you've healed those wounds. So anytime you have immature thinking, thinking that doesn't make sense, anytime you have big emotions, like it's always just childhood stuff or early, teenage, that kind of stuff, that's just been left in those places, and that person's refused to look at those things. It's showing up in their adult life, and it always just feels weird and doesn't make sense. But if we zoom out and take a look at the big picture, it does make sense, because it's just emotion from the past just got activated and it's revealing itself, and that's designed so that we can examine it, work through it, and grow from it, rather than just leave it in this place that's tucked away.
If you were going to leave our listeners with your key takeaways or anything like that, what would those be?
Happiness can be fleeting, and it's actually not meant to be like your default all the time feeling. I think expecting it to be is very unrealistic. We are here to learn. We are going to have challenges, and it's how you relate to those that allow you to move through things faster and connect back to joy and happiness. It is this ability to, take things less seriously, be more playful and curious with it. That opens it up, where we stop seeing every challenge as this big stressful event that's like the end of the world, and we start to relate to it for what it really is. It's just my next step that I need to grow through in order to grow beyond it. And once I learn the lesson all the way through, that thing stops coming up for me. I integrate that experience. I know it front and back. And that's what leads to mastery, is we start to mature all of our emotions around a certain topic or idea, where we have a high degree of confidence because we've worked through it so much that we understand it at a very deep level. We also understand ourselves at a very deep level. That's where I can really be present with something, and I'm not fearing negative things happening. I'm approaching the problems of my life with a curiosity of, okay, what is this showing me? What's still holding me back? And we get excited when we get that information, because we know that that's going to continue to elevate us. So it starts to be this ongoing process where we just catch this rhythm where things are pretty smooth. We don't need the dramatic highs and lows anymore. So being happy now is just the bigger perspective of how much you've grown, that you do have the power to create anything you would like in your life. And as you go to create those things, you are going to be confronted with yourself and what you believe about it. And that's not a death sentence. That's just information for you to work with to continue to develop yourself. So being happy now is really about being present. And that means the acceptance of all that life brings, the good and the bad. The bad is just showing you something about yourself so that you can shift it into something that's good. It's really just finding this rhythm and seeing it as a process and that, hey, I've worked through a lot of challenges. I know I can continue to do that. All of us have taken one thing where weren't very good at it and we had a lot of those big emotions around it and we brought it to a better place. I think everybody's done that with something, but it's just really the same process no matter what topic or subject matter you're dealing with. The same rules apply. You just put your time, energy, and focus into it. You unpack it, you try to relate to it in a healthier way. That's not so dramatic. That's more of in this calm center of like, okay, I might need to confront some fears. I might need to, work through some disappointment, letdown, shame, guilt, things like that. But as I work through those things, I continue to elevate, I continue to feel lighter and feel better. And that allows me to function more from the present mindset where I can experience joy and happiness more often.
Let's share the best places to find you and any other updates or anything like that that you want to share with our listeners.
If you're curious about this work and want to get more connected to joy and happiness, you can reach out and schedule a free 30-minute strategy session with me on my website, brandonthilk.com. So you just register on my schedule and I'll get to know a little bit about you and share how I can help. Also, if you want to register for my newsletter, the Lightning Report, that gets sent out weekly, that's also on the website. If you want to follow along on YouTube and Instagram at Brandon Thielk, post out there regularly. Also on TikTok at bthelk. Please like, subscribe, follow, comment. Anything you guys would like to hear about, please share with me. I'd love to support you in a bigger way.
All the links for those things will be in the show notes or the description if you're watching this on YouTube. We also have a Substack now, so if you are interested in reading recaps of the podcast, that's available also.
We'll see you next time.
Talk to you later, Brandon.